Welcome back, ScreenRanters. The MCU is so vast that every time you watch a film from their library, you're bound to pick up something that you didn't see the first time. Well, with social media and interviews, we also get to learn about amazing behind-the-scenes facts that make those films better. Today, we're going to examine those scenes in Marvel's films that are even more heartbreaking due to events off-screen, some of which completely change how you feel about a moment. We have plenty of sad moments, and some that are bittersweet to take the edge off. So grab your Avengers branded tissues and let's get started. In November 2018, the world lost the great Stan Lee. He was responsible for creating many of the most beloved Marvel characters. 5 months later, Avengers Endgame was released to the world. In that, we saw Lee's final Marvel cameo as a peace-loving driver. He had made a name for himself for popping up in various Marvel TV shows and films. In Endgame, we can also see one of Lee's catchphrases on the back of the car with "Nuff said." You might think that the woman next to Lee as he shouts at the army base is just a woman. Well, it's been reported that the woman is actually a homage to Lee's wife, Joan Lee. She passed away in 2017, a lovely tribute to both Stan and Joan. In the early scenes of Infinity War, we witness Thanos finally get his hands dirty in big fashion. He wrecks the ship that Thor, Loki, and Hulk are on. During proceedings, we see Loki from the main MCU timeline snuffed out by the Mad Titan. It was an intense way to open the film. Well, the actor behind the trickster god, Tom Hiddleston, knew about Loki's demise for a while. He spoke in interviews that he knew before Thor Ragnarok began filming. Due to this knowledge, Hiddleston stated that it greatly influenced his performance in the Taika Waititi film, how his character had morphed into a kind of hero and finally been accepted as Thor's brother. If we held a poll on what the most devastating moment is in Infinity War, Spider-Man's dusting would probably be at the tippity top. The one with Peter Parker begging Tony Stark that he doesn't want to go, but the inevitable happens and the young hero vanishes. Well, a lot of that scene was improvised. Tom Holland confirmed in an interview that they ran through the scene by improvising to begin with, but it wasn't great, yet it did spark an idea for the cast and crew. The scene was then reworked to create what we see on screen. Also, fun fact, Holland repeated the line "I don't want to go" multiple times in order to make himself cry. It's an acting technique he uses to help get the tears flowing.
I don't want to go. I don't want to go, sir, please.
After becoming the first Marvel film to go over $1 billion at the box office, 2012's The Avengers meant a lot to the ensemble cast. Many lifelong friendships were formed behind the camera. Looking to have a memento since he loves to collect props from the films he's in, Tony Stark performer Robert Downey Jr. wanted to keep the massive A used on the side of Stark Tower. He stated in an interview that he wanted this 30-foot prop for his office in Venice, Italy. However, the filmmakers weren't keen on parting with it. A couple of years later, a massive truck turned up at Downey's property without him knowing. They delivered the A for the delighted Iron Man actor. He now has it prominently placed.
I have it. You have it, right?
While everyone was feeling the impact of Tony Stark's sacrifice, there was another character that made the ultimate choice. That was Black Widow. Scarlett Johansson found out what was going to happen to her character before Infinity War began filming. This information would have influenced her performance in both Infinity War and Endgame. Johansson said that she felt the sacrifice was a great way for her character to sail off, all to save the universe, but mostly to save her friends. Johansson also said that she struggled when it came to filming the sad Soul Stone scene, alliteration, with Jeremy Renner. Cast and crew told her that she was getting her own solo film, but Johansson said that it wasn't the same. It's all going to be different for her after filming the final scene in Black Widow's chronological story. After realizing that Adrian Toomes is the Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming, the web-slinger finds the baddie in his makeshift lair. After a brief confrontation, Vulture brings the whole building down on top of Peter Parker. He then panics and struggles to free himself. Well, when filming that scene, they actually used real cement and concrete. It was really heavy. Tom Holland said in an interview that they had the rubble on wires to aid when Parker is motivated enough to lift it off of him, but the fear from Holland is pretty real. He said that it was the hardest scene in the film to shoot. Anyone with any ounce of claustrophobia already felt for Spider-Man in that moment, but to know that Holland was feeling literally trapped, it makes it even more impactful. It was the sentence that was spread across the internet after Endgame was released, all as a way to thank Robert Downey Jr. for his involvement in the MCU for over a decade. In Endgame, as Tony Stark puts Morgan to bed, she states the line, "I love you 3000.
I love you 3000.
That line was suggested by Downey himself, and it all involves his own experiences with his family. His son would say that to Downey when he was growing up. Downey explained that kids will try and express their affection with the biggest number they know. For his son, that was 3000. On top of this, Morgan only says this after Stark says, "I love you tons." Well, there's 2,000 pounds in a ton, so Morgan is trying to say she loves Stark more as well. Two lots of touching secrets in one. During Captain America, the Winter Soldier, the not revealed to be Bucky Barnes yet Winter Soldier, arrives at the home of the obvious Hydra villain, Alexander Pierce. Before he realizes Bucky is there, Pierce opens up his fridge to get a nighttime snack, while inside the fridge is a jar of Newman's Own Sauce, a company founded by actor Paul Newman, who passed away in 2008. The company provides its profits into charitable causes through their own foundation. Paul Newman and Robert Redford, who plays Pierce, were lifelong friends. They worked together a couple of times, such as 1969's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and 1973's The Sting. It's also a touching tribute to a real-life friendship. With the last-minute addition of a line, Robert Downey Jr.'s MCU career came full circle. In Endgame, Tony Stark's last line is, "I am Iron Man," as he snaps his fingers to reverse Thanos' scheme and make the ultimate sacrifice. As well as being the character's final words, it was also literally the last scene Downey filmed for the epic film. The line mirrors the ending to 2008's Iron Man, when Stark announces his alter ego to the world's press.
"I am Iron Man."
On top of that, the soundstage where the Endgame scene was shot was next door to where Downey did a screen test for the first Iron Man film. So it was poetic for Downey in two regards. Another 2-in-1 entry for you. Since we're talking about what Stark did in his final moments, let's do one more. During production of Endgame, many actors weren't privy to the events of the film, but Downey knew about his character's cracking crescendo, alliteration, all the way back in Captain America: Civil War. MCU figurehead Kevin Feige took Downey aside during filming in December 2015. He pitched the Iron Man actor the two-part series, what would later be Infinity War and Endgame, as well as how Spider-Man Homecoming is involved that would lead to Stark exiting the franchise. At the time, this would have been when Downey's contract had expired. With that in mind, every Marvel moment involving Downey after Civil War, he knew what was to come. Little break from all the Tony Stark sadness for a moment. The cast of 2012's Avengers have quite the bond. After all, most of them had a tattoo to commemorate their time together filming the epic film. Mark Ruffalo was the only one of the original Avengers not to get one, as the Hulk isn't a fan of needles, although he's working up the courage to eventually get one. Due to the nature of the film business, the titles of films are given code names to stop the leaking of important information to the public. During an interview with Tom Hiddleston, he mentioned what the special name for the Avengers was. It was Group Hug. Ah, bless. Hiddleston also said that it matched the chemistry of the Avengers, which is adorable. We have another heartbreaking behind-the-scenes moment that involves Tony Stark, but this time indirectly. Near the end of the film, we witness the final goodbye of Stark with a funeral, which for some reason ignores Black Widow entirely. Anyway, the actors that attended said funeral didn't know what was happening until they got there to film. This happened a lot with vital scenes in the film. Sebastian Stan, who plays Bucky Barnes, was told that they were shooting a wedding. He then realized that Downey and Johansson were the only ones missing from the scene. Either they were getting married or something else was going on. It soon became apparent what the real reason was for Stan and the other actors. Near the end of Infinity War, we see Thanos enact his morbid plan. Half of life in the universe was wiped away. We then witnessed the various Marvel heroes slowly turn to dust. One of those poor characters was Groot. With Rocket watching on, Groot utters his final line, "I am Groot," before being turned into ash. On Twitter, a fan asked the Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn if he knew what the final words were. As for the voice actor, Vin Diesel, he had a different script that translated Groot's language into English, so he knew what emotions to use. Gunn stated, "It was Dad," which is probably one of the most tear-jerking words he could have said, leaving Groot to reach out to Rocket one final time before vanishing. At the end of the first Guardians of the Galaxy film in 2014, the Guardians had saved the planet Xandar from Ronan and his minions. Afterwards, Peter Quill finally decided to open up the present that was left to him by his mom Meredith before she passed away decades ago. With this gift, which turned out to be a second mixtape, was a letter. Within, she talks about how much Quill means to her. When filming the scene, the recording of the actor Meredith, Laura Haddock, reading the letter was played out to Chris Pratt. It helped him to experience the emotions his character would be dealing with as he read the final message from his mother. We finish off with the iconic Chadwick Boseman and his role as T'Challa, the Black Panther. Due to Boseman, millions of people around the globe were inspired by his performance on screen, from his debut in Captain America: Civil War in 2016 to Boseman's phenomenal solo film in 2018, Black Panther. With the news breaking that he was battling colon cancer since 2016, most of his MCU career happened during his battle with the illness, which makes his performances even more meaningful and incredible in hindsight. According to reports, not even Marvel were aware of what Boseman was going through behind the scenes. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige only found out about it once Boseman had passed away. Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever!
And that's a wrap. Which of these moments meant the most to you? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more, please like, share, and subscribe. All those actions really help us out. Finally, thanks for joining us today. See ya.